Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 11th episode of Adapt Revolution. Tonight, we have a very special guest with us. It is Beth's sister, Sarah Blick, and we are going to have, I am sure, a very rousing conversation between these two sisters, and I am excited to welcome Sarah. So, Sarah, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, however you'd like to.
Sure. Obviously, Sarah Blick, Beth's sister. Jill, I, as I sort of mentioned, a little nervous about this. Have not done this before, but I'm really looking forward to talking about some of these issues, as I know how much it impacted our family, and of course Beth in particular. So definitely looking forward to this.
Great.
So,
Beth, oh, go ahead.
no, please.
Beth, I'm gonna let you go ahead and get started with questions for
Okay.
Sarah. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
Well, Sarah, have you ever had any close friends who were disabled at all? I mean, going beyond our personal family with Lee and with me.
Yes. I've been friends with people who've been diagnosed as bipolar, have OCD, a variety of mental disabilities. I also have had friends that have been mostly, not mostly, but deaf, but mostly I've had friends that have had a variety of mental disabilities, and so yeah, definitely.
Okay. More of a hidden disabilities?
I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who have been in, let's say, wheelchairs or things, but part of it is where I work and teach, unfortunately, is not, although they're trying to become more handicap accessible, yeah, they have a long way to go. So
Sure.
it kind of weeds people out, so to speak. I mean, if you use a wheelchair, it's hard to get around where we are.
Oh, yeah, so they're not really quite savvy in that regard.
No, they say they are, but yeah, I think
Well,
they
it's
have
like
ways to go.
mm,
Well, like for
actions.
the main path in campus is gravel, and that's kind of hard on wheelchairs, I think. And
Oh, yeah.
we're on top of a hill, and there's still doors that don't have the automatic opening. Although, again, they're getting better. They're much better than when I came here almost 30 years ago. So, yeah. But I think that's why I just don't have many friends with non-hidden disabilities, because I just don't think that there are that many around here.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions might you have?
Well, have you heard of there being a new but budding disability studies, if you want to call it a movement, which is in existence, which I've been a part of a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in my
around the country.
Yes. Well, I mean, in my own little corner, I teach art history, and art history, I would say, in the last 5 years, has really started for the first time to really talk about images of disabled people, talk about disabled artists. They are sort of re-examining a lot of things through that lens. And my own personal research doesn't deal with it because I work on the Middle Ages, and the particular artwork that I work with, we don't have any documents, so we really don't know who was involved. But I have colleagues that it's definitely their focus is on disability studies. I've also been on, like, where I work at this college, there are a million subcommittees. And I was on a disability subcommittee for a little while, and then I'm also part of kind of like an on-call thing with student accessibility services. I think I'm more just for window dressing because I have no knowledge. I think they just like, we need someone from the fine arts. Like, okay, I'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. So how have you been involved with this?
Well, there is a Society for Disability Studies, which got its start in 1982, and unfortunately, I didn't know about it going all the way that far back. I, went to a conference of theirs at the Hyatt Regency in Minneapolis, and ADAPT, the more controversial group, which, has taken to the streets and has had no problem with getting arrested for things like alternatives to nursing homes and better transportation. And and then shared actions with unions like like SEIU, of which I got arrested in a few years ago, and I'm not remembering what SEIU stands for. Matt might remember better, but they, helped pay for me to go to that. And then when they were having it in Atlanta, Georgia next year, I wanted to go to that, but I couldn't afford to go to it.
This is probably a little off topic, but doesn't it frighten you to be arrested? I would be petrified.
Yeah, it does.
But you're like, oh, of course, I'm still gonna do these actions, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, Matthew, have you gone through that sort of thing?
I've never been arrested at a protest, but I think part of the point of a lot of the civil disobedience stuff that like ADAPT has done over the years, part of the whole point of it is to get arrested, because they kind of want to, overwhelm the system, and they're also speaking out against things that should not be illegal, in terms of really fighting for better civil rights for disabled people, and whether that means integrating public transit like it was back in the day, or any number of things, or what Beth just described. A lot of those actions are set up in such a way that the whole point is to get arrested. And oftentimes you're not getting arrested by yourself. You're getting arrested with other people
with
that
others.
are part of the same action.
Oh, so you don't you kind of have a sort of built-in, got people experiencing it with you. So.
And there are generally people that are already set up to advocate for the people that go to jail, and generally you don't stay there that long, maybe overnight or something, if it's even that long. So it's just a way to sort of keep the authorities busy and disrupt the system, and sort of decry things that should not be illegal, as far as that goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that. Would you guys say that you feel that, sort of picking up on what you mentioned before with public transit, do you think it's gotten a little bit better for people with disabilities, or does it still have a long way to go?
I mean, Beth could probably speak to that on some level. I personally think it's gotten a lot better, but go ahead, Beth.
I would say that I'd say that it has a long way to go. I think that since I got here into this place, there, someone I know had told me about Uber and Lyft. Here, where I'm at, there's someone who, um, there are people who, have been able to call me a Lyft, at least for myself, and for others, and they, come within minutes. But I would say that, well, I don't know, it varies with different people. Like during, I would say that, for, when I had, during one of the last case managers I had, it felt good to have the county paying for my transportation, but, where I had problems, and not having to wait, to do it a day in advance, but where I had problems, Sarah, was when I, would call, after I was done with what I was doing, and they would start bringing up stuff about insurance, and I would often get home or wherever I was going to go to late, and I would say, hey, this is your responsibility to do, to come pick me up, this is the address I'm at, and, and it was always a mess.
Yes, yes.
And,
I think by and large,
and then
by and large, almost
like
all of the, oh, go ahead, Beth.
And then when I dealt with another agency called Metro Mobility, you had to call them a day in advance. There were no two ways around that, and sometimes they would take me to the wrong place or, would come late, and I quit dealing with them. Some people who are in wheelchairs, don't have any other choice, or, I would have to, go to other doctors I had to have them write up, whatever ridiculous, stuff they would about why they thought I needed to write up about, needing to use them, and I felt like some kind of prostitute going after sex to get money.
Goodness. Wow.
And I mean, in the bigger cities, I think that there's been a lot of work done to make sure that all of the buses and all of the trains are wheelchair accessible, at least.
Yeah, that's true too.
But so that part of the civil rights work has been effective and has been enforced by things like the ADA. And I think that what Beth is speaking to is the fact that people who do have physical disabilities in terms of being in a wheelchair or using a walker or something else like that don't have as many options for transportation. Unfortunately, Uber and Lyft have not really advanced to the level of including accessible vehicles in their fleets, which would be really exciting to see. If you needed to get an Uber or a Lyft and you wanted to go now and you didn't want to plan all of your trips so far ahead of time, to be able to go onto a rideshare app and select an accessible vehicle and still get picked up, within minutes, like Beth said, would be kind of the next step, But I'll speak to, where I grew up in large part in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, is a suburb. And a lot of the suburbs do not have the same kind of public transportation, and smaller towns do not have the same kind of transportation options that exist in larger cities. you basically, if you're in Cottage Grove, you would have to use Metro Mobility because there aren't really any other options. And one good thing about Metro Mobility is that it is a door-to-door kind of ride.
Oh, that is
You
Yeah,
don't have
it is.
to
I
you don't
will
have to
say
go
that.
to a stop and wait and all of that. You just
right.
wait wherever you're at and you get dropped off at your destination. So that part is
Exactly.
good, but all of the
That is
things that
good.
it's about in terms of the limitations of that are also things that could be better. So
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I understand because where I live, it's very rural, and
mhm.
although they do have a kind of van service, I'm not really sure that it's for physically disabled people. It could be. It could be. I just don't know. But pretty
Mhm.
much, if you want to get somewhere, I mean, there's no buses, there's no trains. You walk or you ride. I mean, you walk or you drive. And
Yeah.
like for instance, when people come here to teach, who come from, let's say, New York City or whatever, and they've never driven, it's
Uh-huh.
bad. It's bad.
Yeah, they have the subway
Yeah, not here.
to deal with.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, what other questions do you have?
Well, let's see. Well, have you ever, I mean, are you aware of specific disability rights groups around the country? I guess I'm talking about ones that are run by and for people with disabilities, and unfortunately, the corporate media doesn't talk very well about them. They're not well known, like say the, you know, African American ones or women's ones or LGBT. Uh,
I honestly, to be frank, I probably wouldn't have heard a lot about them, except that we're related, and you've told me some about them.
yeah.
But honestly, it's just like you said. There isn't a great deal of media attention. There isn't, I think, the awareness of, as you said, run by and for people with disabilities, especially run by them. I think it's really important. And but that's just my opinion. I mean, again,
Oh no, that's you.
no expertise and no real knowledge of things. I think I'm actually more typical in that way than
Yeah.
I mean, just
Mhm.
it doesn't. Yeah, people don't talk about it. Mm-mm. Although I have to admit, the college I'm in has really made it a priority to hire more people with disabilities.
Who has? Oh, you
No,
mean the college you teach
Yeah.
at?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
that
good.
some of the professors that are hired there, make disability part of their scholarship. And
Mhm.
so, again, it's not a huge number because it's, as you know, already difficult to get through things with disability, and then to get your PhD, and then to get a position is hard under
Oh, yeah.
circumstances.
Yeah.
And so, again, we don't have a lot, but there's definitely, when I first came here, I'm talking about like open physical disabilities. I don't remember anybody.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, I came almost 30 years ago, so things are a little different.
Oh,
Yeah.
back in the 80s.
Oh, actually, I came in the mid-90s.
Or the mid-90s.
Can you believe it's been that
Yeah.
long? Sorry, 90s don't seem that long ago to me. But
Yeah. When I was still living with Walter Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, that was in the 90s. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And, yeah. And, Beth, what do you remember growing up? Did anyone sort of sit you down and say, talk to you about disability, or do you have any memories
No.
along those lines?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
God.
I just remember that they talk very euphemistically about things.
Yeah.
They would say, so-and-so has coordination problems.
Oh, yes, all the time.
And I think, well, that doesn't sound that bad, and of course, at the time, they regularly referred to folks as retarded, which was considered advanced from calling them lunatics. And I mean, that was awful, but it was, and but I just remember everything was a little hush hush.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew, do you remember when you were a child if people talked about things?
Well, I I have an uncle who was born with cerebral palsy and used crutches for the first few years of his life, and then was able to get into wheelchairs and then power chairs. So disability has always been part of my family, and it's my mom's brother, and her older brother, and her parents, their family, my grandparents, were very, very conscious of trying to give him the best opportunities that they could. And there were quite a few opportunities in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where they grew up. So he was able to have access to things like school and different activities, and went to a program kind of like it might have actually even been like a Courage Kenny type of program. He learned how to use public transit as a young adult, and how to get himself around, and how to coordinate a lot of his own needs. So I think my family has had a pretty strong experience in terms of support for the disabilities that were present in my mom's family. But yeah, I think one of the things that has come up in my family is mental health. I have a grandparent who ended his own life, and there's a little bit of substance abuse in both sides of our family and things like that. And those kinds of things, I
Didn't know
think,
that.
were dealt with somewhat euphemistically also. It's kind of like, oh, when they drink, they just get a little out there, or whatever.
Right.
And that kind of thing. And I think that there wasn't as much of a focus on really grappling with mental health and that sort of thing until my generation came around, and people were actually talking about, like, therapy and psychiatry and things like that, and in different ways to assist people in living, more balanced lives or whatnot. And so as a person who personally identifies as neurodivergent, I guess it's been kind of a wild ride, and I think that families go through a lot. I'm sure that your family went through a lot with Lee, and also all the things that Beth went through as a young person and everything. And it's not easy. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, is to really try to bring people together around a certain kind of pride about disability, and talking about disability culture, and spreading some good news, and trying to give people some measure of community and support. So yeah, that's
Well,
that's
my memory, and Beth, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's okay.
Because I'm 3 years younger than Beth, so her memory.
Right.
And you've always had an exceptional memory anyway. Those would probably be clearer. But our brother Lee, as you mentioned, was severely developmentally disabled. And I remember him being described as basically he was had the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. And
Right.
I think obviously his birth and development was difficult and a shock for our parents. And
Yeah.
but I think our mom found that there was almost no resources whatsoever to help.
There was what?
There was almost no resources
For
whatsoever.
for him. Yeah.
This is, like early 1960s Akron, Ohio. Or actually,
Yeah.
this is before they moved to Akron, but, again, Midwest. And she would start, what would ended up being, I think it was called the Summit County Society for Retarded Citizens. I think that was its name. I don't really remember. But she just did it, out of her station wagon. She was helping people and trying to organize assistance for people. And, but again, our mother takes on a kind of mythical role because she got cancer when I was 4 and Beth was 7. And she would die 3 years later, and it was a rough 3 years. So I never really knew her that well. But again, when someone dies, they no one says anything bad about them. And so it's sort of like she was this almost like miracle worker. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I think she worked really hard on behalf of Lee and then Beth to try and get help. Again, I have those memories, but
Yeah.
I was so young. What do you remember, Beth?
I don't know what I can remember.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, she took us to the same psychologist as well, to Dr. Medvedev.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Medvedev. That's right. He helped her.
That's what I remember.
Yeah. I have a vague memory of you being taken to some kind of speech therapist. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I still remember that.
What was that?
Yeah. Well, her sister Mimi claimed I didn't talk till I was 4, and I just got into it with her like, hey, why do you care? I'm talking now. It was just so annoying.
I don't, I think one of the difficulties, I think at a very important point in both Beth's life and my life, we were so young, and of course our brother Lee, was, this was typical of the 60s. My dad worked and my mom was the homemaker.
Yeah, exactly. Not a lot of women worked then.
Yeah, she had all the responsibility for the children. And then when she got so sick, we had to have all kinds of various nurses, and our grandmother came for a while, and our aunt.
Yeah, grandfather.
It was very chaotic. And I think it made it really hard for you, Beth.
Yeah, I know it did.
Yeah. So again, I'm grateful for sorts of things that you guys are doing now to help people, not only that are disabled, but their relatives that want to care for them, to make it a little bit easier. It's like it's a whole different era.
I mean, all she could do was tell me how nightmarish I had been during that time.
Well, again, I remember myself as being a good kid. However,
I got some of that in me. I mean, it's like there was only so much I could do doing that. I had enough of that.
Yes. See, I don't know whether my memory is accurate. I mean, I think pretty much for 3 years when our mom was dying of cancer, we didn't have a lot of supervision.
A lot of what?
Supervision. I mean, we had
That's true.
and stuff like that, but it's different. And those
Yeah.
were really
Yeah.
typical developmental years for us. And so
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe we were a handful. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, again, yeah.
It sounds like life threw you all a series of handfuls. So however you were
Yeah, it
acting,
did.
you know, you
Yeah.
just have to get through that kind of stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, however you can. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
and
you're still here.
yeah,
We're
true.
still here. We survived it.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
thing is that we have mental illness pretty strongly in my mother's family, and
Yeah.
then a little bit in my dad's family, then in
Yeah.
our dad's family.
He was abused by his own dad,
Oh, it's terrible. Yes.
but I didn't even know about it
Yeah, he would
for a long time.
he would beat them, and so I remember talking to Esther, our dad's sister, and she told me, you know, she would get slapped around for, you know, the smallest things. And one day she decided she wanted to stay out with friends, and she knew she would get beaten up when she got home, but she thought, I don't care. And Dad, you know, he almost never talked about his childhood, but I remember him saying to me that he learned to be absolutely obedient. So not to provoke his dad. And his dad was had immigrated from the Ukraine, and
God.
he went by way of Israel. It was Palestine at that point, which is where he met our grandmother. And they immigrated to New York, and because he never really mastered English. I mean, he did Yiddish and Russian and everything like that. He found it very difficult to get jobs, and what I heard was he was furious because pretty much he worked in a shoe factory, and he felt that he was something of an intellectual, and he couldn't. So that's really when the fury came out, and so yeah. So I don't know whether you guys need to hear or are interested in any of this. I don't know.
Oh no, right, that's fine.
Well, you know, sisters can't help but tell family stories. So I think, you know, that's real. And you know, to have those kinds of limitations and not really have, at that time, I think, especially a lot of men, the way they were socialized, didn't necessarily have a lot of outlets or weren't really being presented with, you know, very many positive ways to work on things like anger and frustration and, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, that's very perceptive. I hadn't thought about that before. You're right.
You know,
yeah.
I don't think the men's movement had started yet or anything like that. So
no.
Because, you know, my dad was born in 1922, and he was the second of the three children. His older brother, Ben Zion, he was much more rebellious, and when he really got into physical fights with the dad, and both my dad and Ben, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, they volunteered to join the Army. And Ben was stationed over in England and met and fell in love with an English girl who was Catholic or Protestant. Anyway, definitely Christian. And they got engaged, and he told his parents, and his parents are like, if you marry her, we'll disown you.
Oh, and that's what they did.
And they did. And so he moved to
Wow.
California to get as far away from them as possible and never spoke to them again. Oh, yeah, we come from a
Wow.
really dramatic family. We really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
have a number of intermarriages.
Yeah, now we do. I do remember even Dad saying to me when I was going to get married to John, he's like, John's really great, but he's not Jewish. And I'm like,
What?
He said, John's great, but he's not Jewish. And I said,
Oh, Dad was saying that to you?
yeah, he said, he was kind of a little rueful, and I said, it's hard enough to find anyone who you
Anyone, yeah, let alone a non-Jewish.
Yeah.
Or let alone a Jewish guy.
I mean, I think if I was super devout, then we probably wouldn't be together. But
yeah, no.
Not, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I kind of feel the same way.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sort of getting back to the topic at hand, I think our dad had obsessive compulsive disorder. In fact, I'm very sure he did. And
I had no idea.
Yeah, and I have it. And so as an adult, when I finally was diagnosed with it, I could see it in Dad. I could see him try to hide things, but I could pick it up. Like, I could see him counting things and touching things a certain number of times, and I'm like, okay, I know where this is coming from. So
yeah.
I think, plus, our dad had to deal with trauma, not only with violent upbringing, but he had a really difficult World War II experience.
Yeah, I know he fought in World War II.
Yeah, do you know much about it?
No, not really.
I'll just mention it really quickly here. He was in the first wave at Omaha Beach, the one that
Beach.
That they did the Saving Private Ryan movie about. And as far as my dad knew, he was the only one in his entire battalion that wasn't wounded or killed. And then he would be sent. He would fight in the Battle of the Bulge. And other smaller battles. And then when it was Victory in Europe Day, VE Day, he was sent to the Philippines to fight against the Japanese. Luckily, and he didn't. But there was one story. Now, he would never talk about this sort of thing. The most he would say is, "Oh, the Battle of Bulge, it was cold." Like, more than cold. Okay, so I heard a story after he died from one of our neighbors that apparently at some party that they had, and Dad didn't drink very much, but I guess he drank a little that night. And
he was moderate.
Very, yeah. And
I remember that.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Was this in Akron?
Yeah, this is in Akron. So this was the Rouse that told this story. And they said that he and some of his fellow soldiers were going through sort of the countryside in France, and they were exhausted. They needed to sleep. So they found a barn of a farm, and they were just going to lay down in the hay and go to sleep. And Dad was the smallest, most agile of them, and so they said, "Oh, you go up, on the top loft, and we'll sleep down below." And then apparently German soldiers came and shot all of his patriots. And then Dad took out his gun and shot all of the German soldiers. And you had to know that Dad was a really gentle person. And I just think the trauma of this was like, oh, yeah. Yeah. He could just, it wasn't good. And yeah. Sorry for like I said, but I think think that
No,
that's
that
part
that
of
gives
why.
people a window into your father's life, and
It was a
to
window I never had.
Yeah, yeah. And
to
I
be a
didn't
part
learn
of
about it.
so many of those conflicts, it's
Oh
one
yeah.
after another is
Yeah, just
a lot.
Matt, did your dad fight in World War II, or you're too young for that, right?
Both of
what's that?
both of my both of my grandpas fought in World War II. But I never heard any stories. I don't know if it
Oh,
just wasn't that
geez.
dangerous, or
Mhm.
like literally my family did not have has never had really a storytelling uh ritual or anything. It's not like
Huh.
we sat down and heard, what had happened in people's lives, as far
Doesn't
as
sound
our
like it.
elders and stuff. We just never really got any stories.
Uh-huh.
So I know that both of my grandfathers fought in World War II, and benefited from the GI Bill, and
Yeah.
got houses and were set up afterwards and all of that stuff.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about their time in the service.
Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, Dad would only tell, like, he had a couple of funny stories. That's what.
Oh, God, I don't even know if I remember those.
Well, if you want me to tell one, I will. Otherwise,
That's okay. You can
okay.
do that. I mean, the only thing I remember, Sarah, were times when he would come to Portage Path to tell our classes about Hanukkah when he explained
Oh,
those stories. That's what I remember.
wow, I don't remember that at all. That's
I
fantastic.
remember that component and feeling so goddamn embarrassed because we were the only Jewish kids in the neighborhood with
Oh
all,
yeah.
the big Catholic families to boot. That's what I remember.
Do you remember that our block had the most children on it in the entire city?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it had like something insane, like 168 children on the block, because most
Yeah,
of
it was
the families had like 14
exactly.
kids. Yeah. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember my friend Yvonne? She was the 10th of 14.
Hmm.
I can't imagine that many kids.
It just blew me away.
Yeah.
Now I look back on that, and I sometimes, today as a Jewish humanist, I wish I'd had the kind of teacher who would ask, how many of you don't go to church or synagogue, for...
Yeah. Well, even when I moved up to Minnesota and went to Burnsville, I remember a teacher, this was in the public schools, saying, how many of you are Protestant? And that was most of the kids. How many of you are Catholic? And that was some. And then, is anybody else? And I raised my hand. And what are you, Jewish? I've never seen a Jewish person before. Thinking, really?
Oh wow.
No.
Oh, Lordy.
Like 74 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, Beth, with your interest in being a Jewish humanist, how do you think that affects your sort of attitude towards disability, or does it not really have a...
Well, I feel like it, combines right with it because I feel like there aren't, I'm working on getting a Jewish feminist disabled women's support group going, and here in the Twin Cities, in St. Paul, there's an office called the Minnesota Women's Press, and it's been around ever since 1985. And for a while, I will admit that they weren't doing real well on disabled women's issues, but they are doing better, knock on wood. They have, one woman who does articles on a regular basis. My articles are getting on in there. The other woman who was in a wheelchair, Alma Silver is her name. She's got some kind of college degree. I don't know what it is. And and then I want to have this other disabled women's support group because I feel like the disability rights groups, I wouldn't even call them justice groups, are pretty neoliberal. And I, have I asked Ashley, who does the classified ads, if she could put them on in to the paper. And so, for the few words I got in, they are 27, it was $27, and for the next 5 months, it'll be $10.
Oh, good.
Which is quite cheap.
Yes.
And I said to her, why don't you ask Alma Silver if she would be interested in coming to the, other group. But I feel like Jewish disabled women, of which Lilith is the Jewish feminist magazine that publishes out of New York City, and they do a fabulous job of dealing quite well with disability. And they, are going to do an article dealing with Jewish disabled women's issues in, I think it's either January or February of this next upcoming year. And they put in, some women, individual women, in the magazine. And then there's a Jewish women's archive in Brooklyn, Massachusetts. It's a suburb not too far from Boston. And they, did tell me that they have, a number of Jewish women who are disabled. And then I decided to put in, with someone's help here, the need for there to be Jewish women with disabilities in, in public office. And I said I'm running for, North St. Paul's, city council for next year. They're not running anybody until next year. And I said that there are so few resources that, that even mention us, let alone, give us, or recognize, what we do, that it's always the Jewish women who don't have disabilities. Well, of course, when you think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she died of cancer in the end, but she was always so well recognized.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm, and it's like the rest of us don't get recognized for what we do.
Yeah. It's a long battle.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I'm, going to call Ashley tomorrow to see if anybody has, I'm not even, seen anything yet, because I, need that support right now from both sides.
Yeah. No, I understand, and I've always admired your willingness to kind of reach out to try and serve, the community. I mean, I know you've run for office before, and I could never. I've always admired that about you. I could never.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
yeah, so it's, I refuse to believe that there aren't others that don't feel the way I do, especially on the Jewish disabled female side. And I, was looking at an article in my last issue of Lilith. I love how they say, and frankly feminist, at that yet. They had an article in there about, I guess, a woman who was struggling with suicidal thoughts, and I have gone through that myself, and she, had gone to a Jewish cemetery for solace. And I thought, well, gee, it's been a long time since I've been to one, since the one in Gary, Indiana, where, Mom and Dad were buried and Grandpa and Grandma. and then I passed one by in Oregon when I was down in Oregon, not where Amanda and Scott are living, but I was down there for, it wasn't what you would call a major conference. It was for a group that, is against taxes going towards war, and I was in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
And, and I was able to get Amanda's phone number and talk with her for a while, and, we're going to start writing letters to each other.
Good.
Well, I hate to cut things short, my friends, but we're coming up on our hour. And so
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah, is there anything that you'd like to leave listeners with?
Oh, wow. Well, I can just say how proud I am of Beth. I think I only know a fraction of the challenges that she's overcome. And it is always amazing to me that someone that has endured as much as she has still cares so much about other people and puts so much effort into helping other people when she could be entirely selfish and not think about anybody else. But she thinks about everybody else. And considering, again, everything she's had to grapple with her disability, I'm just unbelievably proud of her. And
Thank you.
I'm so thrilled that you guys are doing this radio show. It's amazing. And yeah, I guess that's the main thing. I'm not an expert in anything associated with this, but I am so proud of her. So.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show and for joining us in conversation tonight. And hopefully we'll talk to you again here real soon.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Goodbye.
All right. Have a great night.
Goodbye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Goodbye.